Okay, now that is a welcome. Thank you for joining us for Seattle College's 42nd Annual Martin Luther King Jr. Community Celebration. Please direct your attention to the front of the altar.
So, what's your name?
Maddie.
What's your poem you're about to read?
Dream. It's called Dream.
Let's hear it.
I dream that one day every single family will have a bed to sleep in every night. I dream. I dream that one day every single human being will live in peace. I dream. I dream that one day people will have clean water to drink. I dream. I dream that one day children and families will have a roof over their heads and food to eat. I dream today.
That was pretty good. What's your name?
My name is Tessa, and my poem is called A World of Dreams. We live in a world of dreams. I had a dream, he had a dream, we all had a dream. We live in a world of dreams where the dreamer holds the key to the door of change. I had a key, he had a key, all us dreamers had our keys. And when we unlock that door, when we open up once blinded eyes, when we come together as brothers and sisters, then Dr. King's dream will be complete.
What's your name?
My name's Emcee.
And what's your poem?
It's called Hope. Hope. We may be in a long, dark tunnel with no end. We may live in a nightmare that never seems to stop. But there is always a light at the end. There is always hope. You've got to believe. Esperanza. Podemos estar en un túnel largo y oscuro sin final. Podemos vivir en una pesadilla que nunca parece terminar, pero siempre hay una luz al final. Siempre hay esperanza. Tienes que creer.
Those students are fifth graders. Can you believe it? The depth of those poems, they were beautiful. They're fifth graders at John Stanford International School. Another big round of applause for them. We also want to thank Roger Pegues for the musical prelude. I know many of you all heard him as you made your way into the chapel. Roger has been a musician since his student days at Cornish, and he was inspired by his career by Phyllis Birdwell, a longtime minister here at Mount Zion. And can we have a round of applause? Okay, we have to give a big round of applause for DaNell, Daymon, and Greater Works. They are a local group winning regional awards and competing on the national stage, and we are so excited to have them perform for us today. And I don't think it's any surprise that they sang backup for Stevie Wonder for Seattle Colleges since last year. So that's some pretty great stuff. And I remember last year that I left here wanting to go to church. And so we expect to hear that today. We've already heard a little bit of that. Thank you all for being here. This is a great crowd and a tremendous testament that Seattle stands for Dr. King's life and legacy. I assure you that you are in for a great program. Now, Seattle Colleges has produced this celebration for our city for 4 decades, honoring a great man in his dream. The colleges, Seattle Central, North Seattle, South Seattle, and Seattle Vocational Institute, do their work with the belief that they will benefit when everyone has a lifetime of opportunity, and our individual success is made greater by the success of those around us. This philosophy is very much in line with Dr. King's vision of social justice and equality. One constant of those 4 decades has been Reverend Samuel McKinney, who was pastor here at this church, as you know, and keynote speaker that first year at First Christian Church in Seattle. We'd like to thank Mount Zion Baptist Church for hosting this celebration for the last 32 years. Mount Zion has had a long history of being a community gathering place for important civic and cultural events, including a personal visit from Dr. Martin Luther King at the request of Reverend McKinney during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. And our community is rich with people who were involved in that movement. And today we are joined by people who represent a variety of organizations that continue to do that work. Please hold your applause while I acknowledge them. We welcome representatives from the board of the NAACP, El Centro de la Raza, Martin Luther King Jr. Dream Foundation, the NAACP, Northwest African American Museum, Seattle Public Schools, the Seattle Jobs Initiative, the University of Washington Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity, the Urban League, the Washington State Black Health Professionals Association, the Washington State Commission on African American Affairs, and the YWCA. We also have with us here today King County Sheriff John Urquhart and Chief Deputy Jim Pugel, Seattle Police Chief Catherine O'Toole and Deputy Chief Carmen Best, Captain Pierre Davis from the East Precinct, and members of the Seattle Police Department, command staff, and public safety officers. Thanks to each and every one of you for doing all that you do to keep our community safe. Keeping us strong in the other Washington, I'd like to introduce a member of the United States Congress. Congressman Smith is here from Washington, D.C., where he represents our state's 9th Congressional District. Welcome, Congressman.
Thank you very much. As always, it's a great honor to be here with Reverend McKinney and Reverend Williams in this great establishment for this terrific event. 40 years, that's a long time and a great tradition. Apologize, I'm moving a little bit more slowly than usual. I had hip surgery not long ago. I don't recommend it. Unless you can absolutely avoid it. I was asked this morning to explain sort of what my dreams are for my constituents, and I am blessed to represent an incredibly diverse district, going from southeast Seattle all the way down into South King County and SeaTac, where I grew up, crossed over into Bellevue and Mercer Island. It is, I think, the most diverse district in America in terms of the sheer number of ethnic groups and nationalities that are represented. And my dream for my district is very simple, and that is that every single person in that district has an opportunity for the life they want to live. And there are so many things that go into that, education and healthcare and economic opportunity, but equality of opportunity is my dream. Having grown up in a blue-collar family, but because of the hard work of people who went before me to create opportunity, I had a good public education system to go to. My father was a member of a labor union, so we had decent benefits as a family. There were people who worked hard to make sure that I had opportunity, even growing up in a blue-collar background, and my dream is that my constituents have those same opportunities. And I guess there's two big pieces to it. One is the economic piece, and the other, as we are all very much aware of in recent weeks, is the justice piece, that you have equal access to justice no matter who you are. But I just want to say a quick word about the economic side, because we are falling behind in that regard. America is the place where no matter what circumstances you're born into, you can succeed. Well, we now have less upward mobility than just about every other developed nation in the world. And we have seen a concentration of wealth and a lessening of opportunity for people like the people in the district that I represent. And I think we all need to commit ourselves to working to turn that around. And I will offer but one idea and then sit down, and that is that we have got to start making work paying people for the work that they do. We have developed an economy in this country that values shareholders and customers and corporate executives, but does not value workers. And I have a very personal story. My father, who made my life possible, worked as a ramp serviceman for United Airlines. 1985, the last year he worked, he made $16 an hour with 6 weeks of vacation and full benefits. That exact same job today of ramp serviceman is a minimum wage, no benefit job in most instances. And that is a microcosm of 1,000 different stories of jobs that are no longer paying what they used to pay. You know, we hear a lot of complaints from people, you know, well, we don't want social programs, we don't want welfare queens, we don't want all this. Well, first of all, I believe in a lot of those programs as a hand up that we all need. But second of all, if that's how you feel, then do this. Pay people for the work that they do. Pay them a decent wage. That will give them dignity and opportunity, and that is my dream for my district. And as with all dreams, I'm not just going to lay back and hope that it happens. I'm going to work very hard with all of you to help make sure it happens. And I just want to close by thanking Deborah Entenmann, who works on my staff and does a fabulous job of working with all of you and working on those issues and many, many others. Thank you for the chance to say a few words.
Thank you, Congressman Smith. Governor Jay Inslee couldn't be with us here today, but he has left us with a message. I quote, "I am pleased to extend warm greetings to all of those attending the 42nd Annual Community Celebration of Martin Luther King Jr., hosted by Seattle Colleges. Today you celebrate an extraordinary life and legacy that continues to challenge and inspire our nation. Dr. King's words pierce the very hearts of his listeners and birth a new hope of equality, equity, and spirit of brotherhood that transcends the color of one's skin. Now, nearly 47 years after his death, his vision for a united America continues to call us to action, and the dream he so eloquently articulated on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial lives on, capturing the hearts and minds of a new generation of young people. Diversity is one of our state's greatest strengths, and I am thankful that Washington is home to individuals who are committed to social progress and change. I hope that as you honor Dr. King's memory today, you will be reminded of the powerful impact that citizens of vision and action can have on their community and even their nation and beyond. I can't think of a better way to honor Dr. King's memory than to carry on the values and the work that so defined his life. Thank you all for coming, and please accept my best wishes for an inspiring time of reflection and a productive dialogue about the future and the steps needed to achieve equality and justice for all. Very truly yours, Jay Inslee. And now I have the pleasure of welcoming King County Executive Dal Constantine.
Well, thank you, Tonya, and it's wonderful to be back here at Mount Zion. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us as we honor the life, the work, and the legacy of Dr. King. Before I continued, I wanted also to acknowledge my colleague from King County, with whom I've had the pleasure to work for the last 14 or so years, a man who has been helping to lead the struggle as well as the government in various roles over the course of a half-century, Councilmember Larry Gossett. It is an honor to know and to learn from Councilmember Gossett. You know, as his life shows, the struggle is long. The struggle is ongoing. A growing awareness has the attention of the nation today. An awareness that the racial divide in America remains deep and wide. A new vocabulary has found its place in our language, words that make corporeal things that are social and spiritual. I can't breathe. Words that distill the underlying disconnect. Black Lives Matter. Statements of outrage, a demand once again for equality. You know, in just the last few months, events in Ferguson, New York, and Cleveland have generated outrage and a renewed plea for equality and justice across the nation and here in the county named for Dr. King. We're confronted by the nature of what still exists in America, but is easy to miss if it's inconvenient or uncomfortable for you to look for it. The persistent, corrosive effects of hypocrisy, of a centuries-long mismatch between who we are and who we know we need to be. It's a tension many associate with a different time in America. 50 years ago, to precipitate action for voting rights, Dr. King led the famous march across the Pettus Bridge in Selma. This physical statement against injustice was determinedly nonviolent, but many lives were lost in the struggle to secure the simple legal protections of the Civil Rights and the Voting Rights Acts. The struggle is long, and the struggle is ongoing. As the chief executive of King County, I've made equity and social justice a central tenet of our work. My core commitment, our commitment, is to create the conditions where every person can have a fair shot at success. And I don't mean a long shot at success, like we all have a fair shot at winning the lottery jackpot. I mean a real opportunity. Every one of us has value. We each deserve the opportunity to work and to strive and to create and have a reasonable expectation of success, of doing better than those who came before us. And our society, our economy, needs everyone to have that opportunity to contribute. At King County, we study the inequities within our communities as the first step toward eliminating them. And we ask, how is it that here in Martin Luther King County, African American households have half the income on average of white households? How is it that African Americans here are twice as likely to be unemployed as whites? How is it that African Americans on average in this county will die 5 years earlier than their white neighbors? In King County, we have enshrined our vision for an equitable government into law through adoption of a principle, a fair and just principle in our strategic plan. Simply put, all of us who work for this King County government have as a part of our daily job to consciously integrate the values of equity and social justice into every action we take in service of the people, every decision, every policy, every practice, whether one drives a bus or administers elections or protects the public health or enforces the law. So in answer to the challenge that Black Lives Matter, Dr. King reminds us of his dream of an America that rises up and lives out its founding ideals. The ideals announced by the founders were lofty. And the Constitution they wrote was brilliant but also deeply flawed, a political document limited by what an 18th century mind could imagine. They could not escape the times in which they lived. And we shouldn't fool ourselves that in our day we are all knowing or all seeing. But we can do better, building on a quarter millennium of human experience. We need to live up to this nation's ideals, and more than that, we need to continually renew and expand those ideals. See, it is the responsibility of every generation to drive this nation, the shared experiment, closer to what it can truly be. At King County, no matter what it says in our job descriptions, we pledge to participate in the collective effort to create the long-term systemic changes this nation needs to fulfill not just its ideals, but its potential. Let's create true justice. Let's create genuine opportunity. Let's create an environment in which each person, each man, each woman, each child growing up here has the opportunity to fulfill his or her innate potential, to be a place where the human spirit can genuinely flourish. The struggle is long, the struggle is ongoing, the struggle is happening right now, right here, today. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Constantine. And here to represent our fair city, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our Seattle Mayor, Ed Murray.
Well, thank you. It is always an honor to be here, and I always have a little fun because I spent my freshman year in the seminary, and so I get to speak from a pulpit and fulfill an early dream. I am joined by some incredible leaders who made a difference in this city last year, and that's the members of the Seattle City Council, Councilmember Bagshaw, Councilmember Burgess. I can't forget their names. I need their votes. Councilmember Rasmussen, Councilmember O'Brien, Councilmember Jean Godden, Councilmember Sally Clark. Thank you so much for joining me here. This is Councilmember Bruce Harrell. So this has been a difficult period in our nation's history, and it's been a difficult period in the history of our city. And I want to speak to you as your mayor as we face the challenges of racism in this city. Dr. King would point out again and again that it is through these struggles, it is through these difficulties that hope is born. And as difficult as the conversations that we are involved in this city are, I believe that it will lead to a more hopeful place in a better city. But it won't be easy. There are still unconscionable inequities in the city of Seattle. And since the Great Recession, they have only grown worse. The number of African American children who were living in poverty in Seattle before the Great Recession was 43%, a shocking number. The number of children living in poverty in this city as the Great Recession comes to an end, African American children living in poverty, is now 54%. The number of African American young people who do not graduate from our high school hovers around 40%, and that has gone on for years. And for those of you who've listened to me more than once, you have heard me say those numbers again and again and again, and for some reason, I never see them reported in the papers. It's time, Seattle, to talk. It's time to talk about the reality. It's time to talk about the reality of racism in our own city. But this is also a hopeful city that has been willing to take incredible risks. You heard from Congressman Smith about the need to pay people a fair wage. This is a city and a council that took a risk and became the first in the nation to commit to raising the minimum wage to $15. That will drop the poverty rate, according to the University of Washington, from 13% to 9%, that alone. And you did it again and again, particularly when you passed pre-K. Those 3- and 4-year-olds will enter classrooms in September, and regardless of race and regardless of income, by entering those classrooms, their lives will be dramatically different. They will read at grade level, and they will graduate from high school. And we also, with the leadership of Chief O'Toole, continue to reform our police department. Thank you, Chief. Dr. King said that love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. When he struggled with those he disagreed with those that he wanted to change, it was about love. I recently reread his book, A Letter from the Birmingham Jail. I came across it in a box. It actually belonged to my parents. And I was reminded that he looked at others as his partners even when he opposed them, that his commitment was to nonviolence and to engaging those, even those who were discriminating against him. The events in Ferguson and New York and elsewhere have shown us how much we as a city and as a nation must do if we are truly going to be an equitable society. And when we talk about Black Lives Matter, it does, as the county executive point out, capture the discussion that we have to have when I say it's time to talk Seattle. But I think we also need to realize that when we have this conversation, it also includes the Seattle Police Department. Too often, this discussion around race has focused simply around the police. And more often than not, the police deal with the failed parts of this country, in this city. They are the ones who deal with the failed education system. They are the ones who deal with a failed prison system. They're the ones who deal with a failed mental health system. If we do not broaden this discussion about race to all of those other areas, then what we hope for to build in our criminal justice, in our justice system in general, will not come to pass. And if we stigmatize and make generalizations about any group of people, we know that you can't grow. We know that when we've been applied to people of color, we know that when it's been applied to gay and lesbians, we know that's when that happens when you apply it to women. It also happens when you apply it to the police. So again, Seattle, it's time to talk. As Scripture says, there's a time for everything, and there is a time to march. But now is also the time to talk. And that includes talking with our police officers who do want to do the best for this city. So please join me in that discussion so that we can have the model police force in the nation when it comes to the issue of race. I want to end by repeating the remarks I made the night of the Ferguson decision. I said that night that I cannot pretend to know the everyday experiences of young African American men, who, according to some studies, are more likely to go to prison than to college. And I cannot pretend to know the everyday experiences of young African American who account for almost half of this country's murder victims. And as I have said in the past, the unacceptable truth is that we, as a society, are failing our young African American men. This year, I have visited mother after mother whose son has been murdered by guns in the street, and all of those young men have been African American. But who are they? They are our brothers, our cousins, our uncles, our fathers, our future fathers, and our friends. We have much in common through our shared human experience and through our experience as Americans. And while I cannot pretend to know the individual experiences of young African Americans, I know that we in this city must be united in how we address their experiences. While we may not have the answers, we in this city are listening to you, our young African Americans. This is your city, and your city hears you. Your city cares about you, your city values you, and as I said that night, your city loves you. Your city will move forward with you, together towards greater peace and greater justice. We can do better. We must do better, and for these young people, we will do better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Murray. You've already done the job for me, but I would like to acknowledge again our other elected officials. And if I've missed a couple of you, I apologize. You might have slipped in as I read from the podium here. Larry Gossett, King County Council member. And members of the Seattle City Council, including Sally Bagshaw, Tim Burgess, Sally Clark, Jean Gotten, Bruce Harrell, Mike O'Brien, Tom Rasmussen, and Kashama Sawant. It is my honor to introduce to you Reverend Aaron Williams, Senior Pastor at Mount Zion Baptist Church. As I mentioned earlier, Mount Zion has hosted this program for 32 years. Reverend, I know I speak for everyone here in thanking you for such a warm welcome and your commitment to this program and the celebration presented by Seattle Colleges.
Well, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to the historic Mount Zion Baptist Church, where we are committed to being internally strong and externally focused. We are delighted to join with you in celebrating the life and the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. We want to thank Seattle colleges for choosing Mount Zion as the gathering place for the 42nd annual community celebration of Martin Luther King, Jr. Dr. King's voice can still be heard from Selma to Alabama. I can still hear him say all men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in the single garment of destiny. Whatever is done directly affects all indirectly. And if that is the case, then I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. In other words, we may have all come here on different boats, but we're in the same ship now. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome you here once again as we strive to make Dr. King's dream a reality. And if by chance you don't have a place to worship on Sunday morning, we have service at 7:30 and 10:45. And I promise to get you out before the game starts. Go Hawks!
I told you they were going to take us to church. You know, I remember learning that song when I was small, maybe kindergarten, first grade. And really, as you come into yourself and your personhood, as you get older and you really start to think about the words of this anthem, it's profound. I mean, it makes me tear up just thinking about it. You know, I apologize. I gave all of these acknowledgments of everyone here, and I did not acknowledge the Seattle Fire Department and the Black Firefighters Association. Seattle Central Community College opened its doors in 1966, 1 year after the Voting Rights Act was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, and the same year that Dr. King led the 220-mile March Against Fear in Memphis, Tennessee, to Jackson, Mississippi. For many people, some here now, that march seems like it happened just yesterday. The State Community College Act was passed in 1967, and by 1970, Central was joined by North Seattle and South Seattle community colleges, and all three opened its doors to students as a district. 20 years later, Seattle Vocational Institute opened. Over the years, nearly 2 million people have been educated and trained at the colleges. This is where people go to change their lives. In keeping with Dr. King's dream, the Seattle colleges led and set policies of inclusiveness and championing opportunities for women and underrepresented communities. Half of the students and 36% of college leadership and workforce are ethnically diverse at the university. The students represent more than 80 first languages. For its commitment to diversity, the Seattle colleges received the 2014 Charles Kennedy Equity Award from the Association of Community Colleges Trustees. It is my pleasure to introduce the Chancellor of Seattle Colleges, Jill Wakefield.
Thank you, Tonya. We are so lucky to have Tonya Mosley emceeing with us again today. Not only is she a remarkable broadcast journalist with a wide range of credits, you've seen her on King 5, she's a regular contributor to Al Jazeera America TV, Cairo Radio, KUOW, Huffington Post, and Seattle Refined. Tonya is passionate about uncovering truths, exposing the unknown, and sharing the fragility of the human condition. She strives each day to produce journalism that has true impact. She was recently named one of Seattle Magazine's most influential people in 2014. Clearly, she has impact. Thank you for being here today. I want to give special thanks and recognition to leaders from the Seattle colleges who are with us here today. Warren, and I'd ask if you'd stand, Warren Brown, who serves as president of North Seattle, President Paul Kilpatrick from Seattle Central, Gary Ortley, president at South Seattle, Al Griswold, associate vice president at Seattle Vocational Institute. And I would like other faculty, administrators, and staff from the Seattle colleges to stand today and be recognized. Every day, these people change the lives of our students, our family, and our community. I am so proud to work with them. I also want to acknowledge Charles Mitchell, my predecessor as chancellor, and for many years before that, president of Seattle Central Community College. Dr. Mitchell, I represent tens of thousands of students and faculty and staff who say to you, thank you for believing in us. Now I'd like to introduce the trustees from the Seattle colleges. These individuals represent you as my bosses, and so they're very important to our students and our community. Chair Carmen Gayton and Courtney Gregoire. I am very fortunate, as are you. Well, Each year I look forward to this event, and I've been here the 32 years. There is nothing like being in an institution with such a long history in the civil rights movement, surrounded by people of all backgrounds and beliefs with a common goal of social justice and equity. Look around you. We're all here because we believe in Dr. King's dream and his message of tolerance and inclusion. Many of you have attended this celebration for years with me for decades, which tells me you are committed to his dream and to changing our community for the better for every person. It's a dream that is too important to let go. Well, several community leaders volunteered to share on our website and on social media why this event is important and why they've been in the audience for up to 30 years. So I'd like to provide a special thank you to Seattle Times publisher Frank Blethen, King County Councilman Larry Gossett, Sheila Edwards-Lang, Chief Diversity Officer at the University of Washington, Seattle College's Trustee Emeritus Tom Malone, Mayor Ed Murray, and former Mayor Norm Rice for their contributions. You can see these on our website. Thank you. We have another reason to celebrate, I think, this year. You may have heard last week that President Obama proposed a program that makes 2 years of community college free. What better way is there to achieve social and economic equity than making higher education available to all by eliminating the funding barrier? By 2018, 3 years from now, 2/3 of all jobs will require some college. This vision really allows everyone who lives here to access a better life for themselves and their family. Now, I don't know if Congressman Smith is still here, but I say we don't need to wait for Congress to act on this. We're already developing programs to provide free tuition to Seattle Public Schools graduates, accompanied by those important support services that lead them to completion. This past Monday, we met with Seattle Public Schools Superintendent Larry Nyland, who I'm so happy is here today, and his leadership team to discuss how do we expand this opportunity to all Seattle Public Schools graduates. He's our partner. If you would stand, Dr. Nyland, to be recognized. We've got a great start. At South Seattle College, the 13th Year Promise Scholarship provides all graduating seniors at Cleveland, Chief Sealth International, Rainier Beach, and soon-to-be West Seattle High School with 1 year of free tuition. Since 2008, nearly 500 students from these high schools have enrolled in this program at South, and they're on their way to accessing great education and great jobs in this city. At Seattle Central, the Seattle Central Promise makes sure students don't have to drop out because financial reasons. And the Finish Line Project at North Seattle focuses on helping every student reach the finish line. For us, that's graduation, because when students graduate, their lives will change. To see the impact of free community colleges, I look up to the young people who have joined us today. This proposal means that every single one of you will be going to college, and we think the first 2 years can be free. This could change your world. Earlier, you heard Tessa's poem, "We Live in a World of Dreams," where the dreamer holds the key to the door of change. It reminds me of my favorite story written by a monk in 1100 AD. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. When I found I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town. I couldn't change the town, so I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realize the only thing I can change is myself. And suddenly, I realized that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation, and I could indeed have changed the world. By funding education, we can change the world and fully live Dr. King's dream. We often hear of proposals that sound too good to be true or that they never can gain traction. This one's important. This one can happen in Seattle. This one is too important to let go. Thank you. I would like to introduce President Gary Ortley and to recognize an outstanding leader who really has shown us at South Seattle as a model for the state, a pilot for the city and the state, what the impact of free tuition through the 13th year program is. President Ortley will present the Reverend Samuel McKinney Scholarship. President Ortley.
Thank you, Chancellor Wakefield. You know, the students of South Seattle College are the most diverse, first generation, and lowest income of any college in the state of Washington. And because of this, the awarding of scholarships is very special. Scholarships play an important role in our students' educational journey. They provide needed financial assistance, but as well recognition of our students' success. One scholarship that is particularly significant is the Reverend Samuel McKinney Scholarship, which was established to recognize the many contributions of Reverend McKinney, a civic leader and longtime pastor here at Mount Zion. The Reverend Samuel McKinney Scholarship is awarded each year at this event. This year, I'm proud to add Michaela Ross to the distinguished list of scholarship recipients. Michaela is currently enrolled in the Pastry and Baking Arts program at South Seattle College. She first became interested in baking while taking high school classes at the Puget Sound Skill Center, and she graduated from high school with a 3.6 GPA. After completing the Pastry and Baking Arts program, Michaela plans to continue her studies by earning a bachelor's degree from South Seattle College's Hospitality Management program. She then plans to use her management and baking skills to open up her own bakery. One of Michaela's instructors, Kim Smith, says that Michaela approaches her studies, her craft, and her future with maturity and confidence. She also notes Michaela has an impeccable attendance record. Please join me in congratulating Michaela Ross as this year's recipient of the Reverend Samuel McKinney Scholarship.
If you confess the Lord, My name is Maya, and I wrote this poem. It's called I Dream a Magical Place. I dream a magical place, a place I haven't been before, a place where violence is no more and peace is king. I dream a magical place where bystanders stand up to bullies and those who are cruel, where people do what they want freely, no matter race, skin, gender, religion. I dream a magical place where all is free.
My name's Maggie, and I wrote this poem. It's called I Dream. I dream that one day our world will be a haven full of love and laughter, peace and prosperity, excitement and equality. I dream that judgment is banished, that freedom and justice are king and queen. I dream of a schoolroom of faces, black and white, Asian and American, boys and girls, together. I dream, I dream, I dream. I dream of a wonderful world, a peaceful world, an equal world, which despite our differences, we all share. I dream, I dream, I dream.
My name is Jackson, and I wrote a poem called Dream. Some dreams may come true, some may not, but many can if everyone tries. World peace is what I fight for, not with violence, but with my voice. And if everyone helps, my dream may come true. Just from one small dream, big things can happen. Yume. Yume wa kanau mono mo arimasu. Kanawaenai mono mo arimasu. Demo takusan no yume wa kanaimasu. Moshi minna ga gambareba, sekai no heiwa no tame ni tatakaimasu. Boryoku wa tsukaimasen. Boku no koe o tsukaimasu. Moshi minna ga otetsudai suruba, boku no yume wa kanaimasu. Ikko no chisai yume kara takusan no ookii koto ga okorimasu.
Thank you. And again, these are fifth graders. Isn't that amazing? I'd like to also acknowledge in the audience Assessor Lloyd Hara, Constance Rice, former Vice Chancellor Carver Gayton, and Phyllis Kearney, former trustee. Now, in addition to sharing Dr. King's dream, see, I'm stumbling over my words because I'm so excited about this. I know all of us are also cheering for a repeat in the Seahawks Super Bowl win. And so it's written here that I'm supposed to tell you what my dream is, but in addition to them winning, that's everyone's dream, right? I listen a lot to Pete Carroll, we all do. And one thing that really sticks with me in my personal life is his philosophy that we could all take with us. We can learn from it. He keeps saying over and over when the big games come up, hey, this is a big game. How are the guys going to do? And he says, you know, they treat every game like a championship game. They are already champions. They are just getting closer and closer to what's already inside of them. And I think about that in our daily lives, how we're striving to be better, we're striving for our kids to reach or attain something, and it's already in them. It's just all about harnessing that and really getting into that because we are already champions. And so that is my dream for as I look at these kids up in the audience, really understanding that that is already in you. And each step you take, you're getting closer to yourself. So that's my dream. I'd now like to introduce someone very special, our keynote speaker. Barbara Earl Thomas is a visual artist and a writer with a long-standing record as an arts administrator. She has overseen programs for Seattle's Department of Arts and Cultural Affairs and Bumbershoot. Currently, she is the Major Gifts Officer for the Northwest African American Museum, where she has served since 2008. Barbara has exhibited artwork at Seattle Art Museum, Bellevue Art Museum, Whatcom County Museum, and museums throughout the United States. Her work is included in a number of prestigious private and public collections, such as the Safeco Corporate Collection, Microsoft Corporate Collection, City of Seattle 1% for the Arts, and the Seattle Art Museum Permanent Collection. She received the 2013 Mayor's Art Award for Cultural Ambassador and has twice received the Seattle Arts Commission's Award for New Nonfiction. Her essays have been anthologized and included in artist catalogs. Faith and the Ultimatum, published by Seattle Journal for Social Justice, is an inspiring story of Barbara's journey to higher education as an opportunity gap filler. Barbara writes, when my fate and the federal government's ultimatum collided that spring in the day of 1968, giving me the opportunity to attend the university, I knew in quick order that I'd hit the jackpot. I never once in the whole 8 years looked back or was unaware of my good fortune. It was nothing less than a miracle. Had I gone and successfully completed my degrees, that might have been enough. But it was that night in the dorm when I learned how to learn. That was a great value. It was there, in that fertile soil, when I finally understood that my abilities were limited only by my interest and how hard I was willing to work. Barbara has had a busy week already with reading for the Port of Seattle Wednesday night, speaking at Pechakucha, Seattle, here at Mount Zion last night, and back here with us this morning. And she's really funny, too. I was with her in a back room, and she had me cracking up. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Barbara Earl Thomas.
Well, I'm pretty astounded to be here, and what a program that's gone on before me. And I'm honored. I mean, I'm incredibly honored because I am here with just so many friends. I see Carver and Dr. Mitchell and just so many of my friends. So if I do anything weird, it's their fault. I'm humbled and amazed to be here today to speak in the honor and on the occasion. We all pause to consider what this day means to us and our nation. I must first thank Jill Wakefield, Chancellor of Seattle Colleges, for the invitation, Ernest Phillips, Seattle College's Executive Director of Marketing and Communication, and his great staff for all their support, and Senior Pastor Aaron Williams, who I'm getting to know and just enjoying so much. So if you want to take him up on that offer, I tell you, you won't regret it. And finally, I want to thank him also for being wise enough to continue this tradition here at the church. The images that you see on the screen are from photographer Zorn Taylor. He's a young photographer who I've met, and I just thought, you know what? I really want to have him be included. And the faces you see, if you think about wanting to get your face taken, you know, he's your guy. I'm additionally honored to be at the podium at Mount Zion Baptist Church, led so long by our very own Samuel B. McKinney, who in 1961 arranged and hosted the one and only visit that Dr. King would ever make to Seattle. They stood together there, two human beings, with all their human beingness, stated their case, shaped a vision that has sustained us all these years. Just imagine the humanness of their being, mere mortals like you and me, facing that Mount Olympus-sized dream and task. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. expressed a dream so eloquently that we are often left speechless. When he told us that this sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not the end, but the beginning. And that is where I have to start every day. We stand, each one of us, as a link in the line from that place that Dr. King called the beginning. On that day, we were given a vision, a hope, a star to reach, not knowing in that moment in 1963 all that would befall us as a people and a nation. Even as we mourned the assassination of Medgar Evers, we could not foresee the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, nor take in the possibility that Dr. King himself would be mowed down, his death killing hope in its wake. We could not imagine the depths of Vietnam and all the wars that would bring us to September 11th, 2001, when the world as we knew it would stop and be stunned, realizing that it had come to this. If we didn't know it then, we know now. We are all in this spaceship together. At that moment, Dr. King delivered those now immortal words, "I may not get there with you." He faced thousands of hopeful people who helped to make that particular moment possible. I do not diminish Dr. King when I say we could not have gotten here without all of those who took up the seemingly small but crucial tasks. Today, we must remember the John Lewises, the Frederick Reeses, the Ralph Abernathys, the Ella Bakers, the Bayard Ruskins, who worked tirelessly off the podium, often to the side, out of the spotlight. I pay homage to all of those who got on the buses, on the trains, in their cars, walked to mark that moment. But I also want to remember the mothers and the fathers who were unable to attend, but kept the home fires burning, attended their children, kept the school doors open, worked their jobs, guarded the voting booths, and gave a hand to any who were less strong than they. When I think of the small steps, I have to start with my very own existence by way of my grandparents, Doc and Ethel Lee. Do they name kids Ethel Lee anymore? And people like them who came here in the early 1940s, who would eventually send for their relatives, and in my case, my mother and her sister, my mother, Lula Mae. I don't think they name people Lula Mae anymore either. That may come back. They, like the grandparents and parents of so many, migrated here from Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, and all parts south to start anew. They came looking to work hard and to find that American dream. Can I just underscore work hard? I never figured out how we got to be referred to as lazy when I saw everyone around me work so hard. My father would arrive by way of the military, having completed the 9th grade. My mother, having come with her family, would have completed the 11th grade. One might say, why did she quit? She was so close, only 1 year away from graduation. But that was the subtle custom, that brutal dream killer. If you were black in that place where she was from, the 11th grade was as high as you were allowed to go. She was stopped, sure enough, but she did not quit. She simply transferred her dream and moved it forward to her children. Little did I know that I was their dream catcher. I held their dream, never knowing how full I was of their hope. I and most of my classmates could not, in our young lives, appreciate or imagine the gravity of what we represented to those people who sent us out of their houses every day, well-fed and beautifully dressed. We could not decipher the pride in their faces, the lilt in their voices, as they spoke among themselves about us. When we graduated, it was not an individual accomplishment, but a family triumph. Only years later would I understand and feel the magnitude of what now seems like such a small thing to want for a child. I did not suffer the hard-scrabble, sharecropping, cotton-picking life of my parents and grandparents, but this was by no means luck on my part, but a well-laid plan seeded by my grandfather's courage and willingness to strike out into the unknown. I did not experience the segregated South, Jim Crow trains, but I understand, as many of you do here, that my small accomplishments were part of a much larger hope passed on to me, not while always in words, but in a sigh and a look and the embodiment of their very hard work. It was our job to get the goods, grasp the knowledge, get the word, the secret of the system, and bring it home and give it to anybody who wanted or needed to have it. That's what I said, bring it on home. And if you got it, you shared it. Today, with the ubiquity of the internet, Facebook, Instagram, and tweets I do not do. I'm not talented enough to do tweets. The big moments now come to us in an instant, cause a momentary explosion of comment, only to be replaced by yet another more startling event. The good news is, it's never more clear than now that we're all bound together and responsible for each other. We are all bound together and responsible for each other. But it is never more clear that as we share the human spectacle, that no transgression is hidden for long. The bad news is that the repetition of the images can cheapen even the most fantastic human event. We stand stunned in the face of impending environmental disaster, global and local terrorism. The images and sounds of suffering confront us. As they happen, we are dwarfed in the shadow of their enormity. What can we in our smallness do? We who glean the fields today gather the shafts of yesterday's wheat. In grief from so much loss, this may just be our salvation. Our job in these days of endless blogs and lives gone viral may again be to find the sacred in the mundane of everyday acts. As ordinary as it may sound, when we send our children off to school, we reenact a sacred ritual for which people have risked beatings and death to achieve. It is an impulse rooted deep in our human makeup to embark on this 18-year commitment where one day builds on a week, a month, and the years culminate in the moment when all those small steps add up to one well-prepared life. As each educator stands in front of the classroom, he or she will struggle with may struggle with inadequacies of resources. But if he's lucky, if she is lucky, he will find a way to connect with the child, and that child is our future. We will resonate as we must, and in our brief moments of clarity, we grasp that each and every one of us matters, because without the work, hope, dedication of the many, that moment in 1963 might never have happened. And who knows if ever in our life we will have a moment like that again. But I say we must be thankful that we had it. And this might not be the moment for the one, but it just might be the moment for the many. I am grateful to those of you who have raised your families when you might have been doing something else. Those of you who have gone beyond your families and helped a young person who was not your own child, given money and time for the betterment of your community, even when you got little or no notice. You did it anyway, regardless. I want to thank those of you who have gone into teaching when it was clear that this was no way to make your fortune. Just have to bring it up. But it remains one of the most important professions any community who knows what is really at stake. It's the most important profession. Our next big challenge, and I think somehow it's starting to be addressed, as Chancellor Wakefield said, as a community and as a nation, is to reclaim higher education as an affordable right for the many, not a luxury for the few. We have to take back from those lending institutions who would bankrupt our families and mortgage our children's future. My first venture into college was what was then called the Seattle Community College, as an evening student where I took my very first English class. My mother and her best friend, Viola, who was also my hairdresser, that's what multitasking was in the old days. Your mom's best friend was your hairdresser. Dropped me off at the Summit Annex at 6 p.m. and promised to pick me up at 9. I don't know what those two young ladies did when they left. I know they didn't wait for me 3 hours. But I never doubted that they would be there when I stepped out, and they were. I never asked them what they did. I should have. Today, I ask you to remember the aspirations, the small steps needed to arrive. It's not okay that because we can't stand at the monument on Washington Square and address hundreds of thousands, that we say that our small contribution does not matter. Who are we to say that our one vote means nothing? Who are we to overlook the loss of even one child to violence or despair? In these days when we are overwhelmed by the wave of Michael Browns and Trayvon Martins, or the child who kills himself or another, none of it's okay. I say that every small thing matters. Doesn't matter. And actually, I don't care if it's a black kid or a white kid. We have a problem with our children. And I haven't run into too many kids that I don't think are at risk. In this light, I think of Dr. King's speech as a love letter sent to the future that he would not see. And it's a message not just for black people, but for all of humanity. And black people are generous. if not anything else that you can think of. We are a generous people. In 2015, the gravity of poverty still exists. The societal injustices bring no relief from violence we heap on each other. We wonder if we've moved the needle of progress at all. When in doubt, I say, go out and harvest the fruit from your trees, put them in a bag, and take them to the food bank. Volunteer at your local school, whether you have children or not. When my grandfather decided in the 1940s to move his family from rural Shreveport, Louisiana to Seattle, it was no small move. These former sharecroppers and cotton pickers were the sons and daughters of those who passed on a direct memory of slavery. They were the many ungraduated from any high school with no diplomas with hands up in labor and in defense, and fought for our country, the only country they knew. Today, let us remember the individual story, the small kindnesses of he who opens the door, holds the train, shares the food, the knowledge, the kind word. In 2015, I am charged with remembering the gifts of all those who came before me. These individuals were part of the raw stuff of the dream to which Martin Luther King referred. As I stand in Mount Zion Baptist Church, I must speak of Reverend Samuel B. McKinney, who in 1961 met with Martin Luther King Jr. right here in Seattle. He himself, a 1949 graduate of Morehouse College, was exemplary to all in the parish of the value of education, the power of the voice matched with reason, as the church was one of the pivotal symbols of unity in the Seattle Central District, the core of African American community, and continues to be that for many. We were the neighbors who held a tightly knit community together, and the businesses that served them and us. In 2015, we lament many of the changes, but we also take heart and are charged with naming the successes of those who have caught the dream and moved it forward. We still stand for uplifting the race, the community, the country. My grandfather used to say, if you live long enough, you're going to see some of everything, Bobby. And many of us have lived long enough to see and remember Sam Smith, first Black City Council person, remember and be a part of the election of Norman B. Rice, first African-American mayor of City of Seattle, Ron Sims, Seattle City, King County executive, Larry Gossett, King County Council, Dr. Charles Mitchell, Seattle College's Chancellor, Judge Charles E. Smith, Charles Johnson, Richard Jones, all exemplary leaders, Dr. Ben Danielson, Dr. Vassell, I could just go on and on. Charles Johnson, National Book Award winner, MacArthur genius, and August Wilson, Pulitzer Prize award-winning Prairie Wright. All of these people have lived and do still live among us. I know you're still here, Dr. Mitchell. And yes, there is Barack Obama, the first African-American president of the United States. And this I say, there are children right here in this room who the only president they have ever known at this moment is Barack Obama. So you think about that, maybe they think all the rest of them are Black. I pray, never let me be so overwhelmed or habituated to the grand gesture that miracles like these no longer impress me. I say we are here today to engage in mindfulness that recognizes that these are still events for which we can and should be grateful every day. There is a place for and a merit in being the second, third, or even fourth mayor, city council person, community leader, National Book Award winner, scientist, doctor, pastor. These achievements remind us that there was a time not so long ago before that first when we used to say, we never thought we'd live to see the day. I know you remember that. Our job now is not just to pass on the dream, but to take it out, brush off the tarnish of any of our own personal disappointments, and pass it on as we ourselves received it in all its fresh wonderment. Today, let us remember to reappreciate, re-engage, and be amazed, as this might not be the moment for the one, it just might be time for the many. It's all about you. Thank you.
There's so much happening in this city in the next few weeks and the next month to commemorate Black History Month. But stop by the Northwest African American Museum on Martin Luther King Day this Monday for an all-day open house where you can look through books about the civil rights movement, access speeches by Dr. King, and learn about others who carry on the task of advocating for social justice. And thank you again, Barbara. Now, Seattle College's cable television, SCC-TV, will be broadcasting today's event every Sunday through the month of February and this Monday on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The program will be broadcast at 7 p.m. each of those days and can be seen on Comcast Cable 28 and Wave Broadband Channel 19. We also invite you to come on downstairs for a reception to continue this conversation informally and to enjoy refreshments. And now let's continue the tradition of closing this celebration with a song. Join Reverend McKinney, DaNell Daymon, and the Greater Works, and we shall overcome. Thank you.
We